the very beginning, her idea was to actually focus on objects and interiors, so that people would be almost like objects, just sitting there straight, no smile. But as she refers to her experience, she said that soon people became very important. So, as we know from many sources, she loved to talk to those people. So when she entered a certain interior, she would do the photo session very quickly, but then she continued for long talks with a tea or coffee, and she was very impressed by the type of people she met. She was very inspired that even though they are often very poor, but they are very happy. She was referring that the meeting with those people gave her a lot. That it was very inspiring.
So my name is Zofia Augustyńska-Martyniak, and I'm Vice President of Zofia Rydyt Foundation, and privately I'm her great-granddaughter. Zofia Rydyt was a Polish photographer. She was born in the beginning of the 20th century, still in the moment that Poland wasn't on the maps of Europe. During the war, she ran away from the east parts of Poland, where they live with her parents.
My name is Karol Hordziej. I'm curator, culture manager, and I'm also working at the Zofia Rydyt Foundation.
I'm Claire Graphic. I'm head of exhibitions at the Photographers Gallery in London. So Sociological Record was really the last and biggest project that Zofia Rydyt came to. She started it later in her career, in the late 1970s, at the age of 67 years old.
And the initial idea was very simple, to photograph houses in Poland with their inhabitants. But slowly, the idea grew into many subcategories, and the whole project consists of over 20,000 photographs on negatives and few thousand of prints. The idea actually came from an accidental visit to the car factory in Jelcz. Zofia Rydyt was impressed when she saw those boxes where people were working. And she was impressed that even though each box is the same size, it's kind of a white cubicle, but everybody wanted to customize the space. So the objects were really personal. And she thought that it's very interesting to actually talk about people through the interiors and to show how objects, architecture, decorations actually refer to individual aesthetic, to political points of view, and basically also like a psychological side of humans.
Nazywam się Maria Sokoł-Augustyńska i jestem prezeską Fundacji imienia Zofii Rydyt, rodzinnie powiązana poprzez mojego męża, który był ciotecznym wnukiem Zofii Rydyt. Ja poznałam Zofię Rydyt w roku 1978, czyli dokładnie w momencie, kiedy zaczynała pracę nad swoim zapisem socjologicznym. Nie wiedziałam jeszcze wtedy, że tak zwiąże się z tą postacią i w ogóle z fotografią. Od roku 2010 wraz z córką założyłyśmy Fundację imienia Zofii Rydyt. No i już kolejne 25 lat opiekujemy się tym zbiorem. Moja pierwsza wizyta w domu i właściwie w pracowni, bo dom był równocześnie pracownią Zofii Rydyt, fotograficzną w jakimś sensie. Pojechałam na pierwszą taką wizytę z moim przyszłym mężem. Otworzyła nam starsza pani, nieco zgarbiona, z lekko przychyloną głową, o pięknych, brązowych, piwnych oczach i z bardzo miłym uśmiechem nas powitała. To, co mnie uderzyło wówczas, to zapach chemii fotograficznej, który unosił się w całym mieszkaniu. No i nagromadzenie oczywiście dużej ilości przedmiotów, książek, teczek ze zdjęciami.
Sociological Record as a project functioned on lots of different levels for the artist. I think on the one hand, It was about trying to preserve a certain way of life that she saw disappearing in Poland at the time, that she wanted to preserve. But it is interesting to sort of think about how the project changed for her over the period that she was working, because I think there's a sense that the sitters, the people, were initially seen as part of the furniture almost, part of just this preservation of stuff. But as the project went on and her relationship with the subjects grew more perhaps intense, or her way of thinking about them grew more intense, it became also a more sort of spiritual journey for her as well.
Sociological Record is a work done between 1978 and 1990, which is very special time for Poland. At the same time, the image that we can have from this work, it's not really a portrait of the whole Poland. If you go through the photographs of different photographers from that time, you see that mostly because Zofia Rydet focused so much on the rural interiors and buildings, this is only partly a portrait of the Poland of that time. And she was very interested in capturing this moment of the culture that was passing. Sometimes when she came back to the same place only a few years later, the house didn't exist anymore.
In the exhibition at the Photographers Gallery, we were really keen to emphasise how open Zofia was to reassessing her archive and then pulling out different subcategories of works of motifs that she saw arising as she worked on the series.
Some of them, you can even call them kind of separate visual research, like Myth of Photography is actually about the role of images in the interiors of houses. So how important images were for people, what role they're playing. We have to underline that this was really growing all the time. And if you go through the archive of negatives, you see that there are many, many directions that she was following. Some of them became official subcategories, and some are just kind of side roads. And it's really amazing labyrinth.